Well, tonight or this afternoon, we have Dr. Alan Wong, our Vice Chair of AEN, in talking about on the using mindfulness as an interpretation tool to enhance visitors' experience in ecotourism setting. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Ellen to the stage, and you already have the shared screen. So after your talk, I would have the floor to get a chance to do some question and answer session. So both of you who are listening, please take any questions in your note so that you have a chance to talk about it. Or alternatively, you can put your questions on the chat. I try to look for a question for you. And please keep muted unless you would be appointed to speak at the end of the session for Q&A. So thank you very much again for joining, and let's have Alan start. Alan?
Yeah. So you see my screen? Hi, everybody.
Hi, we see you.
The screen okay? Full screen? Can you see?
Yeah, all good. All good.
Okay.
Yours.
So I start my presentation now, all right? First of all, thank you for your support and joining my class for today, right? So today I'm going to present the topic on using mindfulness as an interpretation tool to enhance visitor experience in ecotourism setting. Does sound okay, Masaru? Does sound
yeah,
okay?
all good. Yeah, sounds good so far.
Right, so as you see in the title here, I'm Dr. Alan Wong. I'm AEN Vice Chairman, and I now am the founder and expert consultant for my own company called G&D Hospitality, Tourism, and Educational Consulting, right? So you can find more on my background from the AEN website, right? And also my company website, if you like to. I just keep a short introduction of myself. I study in UK for my degree and study my tourism in Australia and study my master and PhD in hospitality and tourism in Hong Kong. And I have a teaching experience in high school and universities for 30 years already. I'm a bit old now. And I provide many leadership and team building trainings for hospitality and tourism practitioners. And I work as a tour guide before and tour leader, cruise commentator, theme park business development manager in China as well. And I am a GSTC trainer, a Global Sustainable Tourism Council qualified trainer. Also, I'm a Green Destination Auditor. And then I retired myself from PolyU end of 2018 and start my own consulting company since then, right? So in this talk, right, I'm going to talk about, in this talk, I'm going to share one of the useful concepts in ecotourism, which has been applied to different tourism and ecotourism settings. The mindfulness concept is a valuable tool for interpretation, which enhance visitors' experience. Mainly, I will briefly explain what this concept is, and then I will use an example of how this being applied in wetland park context in Hong Kong, and few other settings as well. So why I'm so interested in this topic? Well, it's because I know this called mindful and mindfulness ideas for many years, since I was a student in Australia more than 28 years ago. And then I was a teacher in the university, and I teach a subject called visitor management, and I use a lot of these idea and concept to teach my student in visitor management. So I'm very familiar with this concept, and I asked my student to research, and I myself do research on this area myself, and written case study in a wetland park, and I present in China and other conferences as well. So actually, this main reference here is from my teacher. She was my teacher many years ago, Moscato Gianna. And the textbook here called Making Visitor Mindful, Principles for Creating Quality Sustainable Visitor Experience through Effective Communication. And of course, at the end of my presentation, I will give you more reference for my presentation. So first of all, what is interpretation? So there are several definitions for interpretation, but they are parallel to communication. And interpretation is concentrate on visitor enjoyment, exciting curiosity, and contributing to conservation as well. And interpretation is a kind of communication that's particularly relevant to tourism and recreation. All right, that is from the textbook from Gianna. So what is the concept called mindfulness? Mindfulness is a state of mind that results from drawing novel distinction, examining information from new perspectives, and being sensitive to text. When we are mindful, we recognize that there is not a single optimum perspective, but many possible perspectives on the same situation. So what does that mean? So what is a mindful visitor? A mindful visitor actively processes new information, creates new categories for information, and thinks about new ways to behavior. Mindfulness is associated with more learning, better decision, increased self-esteem, and feelings of control and enjoyment. So when is your last visit that provides you a mindful experience? Anybody like to share with me, like Masaru? Can you hear me, Masaru?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Yeah.
You have any mindful experience, your last experience? Can you share one workshop with me? How about your experience in China? We have our January meeting there. Any very particular moment you cannot forget?
Yes, I mean, anything that I see is very foreign to me. So I'm using my 5 senses to absorb as much as I can and enjoy the moment. So
what makes you cannot forget? Can you tell just one short experience that what makes you so mindful you cannot forget?
I suppose in China, the vastness that you have, it's a mainland China, you know, because Japan is an island nation. The openness of the land for me was very, very exciting, for example.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering me. Okay, so I'll give you some more idea about this, what we call mindfulness and mindless model of interpretation. Actually, there are 2 big elements. One is called communication factors or setting factors. These including we have to, when we do our interpretation and in a setting that we provide variety or changes, or we have to use multimedia, multisensory media. We have to use novelty to do a present or surprise our guest, our visitor, or we have to use questions to help them to remember better. Like my presentation just now, I asked Masaru for a question, right? And we need to give tourists to have their control, or we have to use interactive exhibits. or we need to make connection to tourists, and we have to provide good physical orientation. These are what we call communication factors, very important in interpretation to give our audience, our tourists, our visitor a mindful experience, okay? And of course, there are other factors to look at that, right? As a contrast, what is a mindless visitor? That means after the visiting, they could not remember anything at all, all right? And that is if our exhibit is repetition, no differences, very traditional way presentation, no interaction, not challenging to them, very static exhibit, poor physical orientation. And when the tourists are very tired, they are not interested, that they cannot be mindful. So this is roughly what we call a mindfulness and mindless model. If I demonstrate this in this diagram, it's very easy for you to understand. Right. So this is the cognitive state of mindful. This is a cognitive state called mindfulness, right? If a tourist, how we can give a tourist a mindful cognitive state? We have to provide this, what we call communication factor or setting factor that I mentioned earlier, okay? Also, the tourists have to be very interested in the content. They are not tired, what we call low level of fatigue. And if the structure is clear, they match what the visitors know, and the outcome, or what we call the consequence, is that the tourists will learn more. They will have a higher satisfaction, and they will have a greater understanding, all right? As a contrast, what makes the tourists mindless is because the setting are not interested. The tour guide not making challenging a presentation to the tourists, okay? The exhibit are not very boring and all this. Also, the tourists are very tired, or they have a very low interest in content and poor structure and not matched with what visitors know. And the result is that they have little learning, low satisfaction, and little understanding. Now, so this, to put it simple, this is what we call a mindfulness and mindless model of interpretation. If we understand and a good result. So this is basically the idea. So far, so good. Masaru, sorry, I have to talk to you. Clear now?
Yeah,
okay.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
Easy to look at the diagram. Thank you. Then I move on to my presentation, right?
Yeah. It's
good.
It's a bit small
so
print, but okay.
Okay. So I applied the concept into my contest called Wetland Park. I don't know how many of you have been to a wetland park, okay? You can send a message to me in the notes that you've been to Hong Kong wetland park. I don't know. I have no time to look at it now. But I know that there are two students of me here in the group right now. I have Monica and Priscilla, my two former students. They are in the group now, listening to my presentation. So Wetland Park actually is a world-class tourism facility that combining conservation, education, and tourism objective. That is from the manager of Hong Kong Wetland Park when he came to my school to do the presentation. That's what he said. And he also said Wetland Park, the Hong Kong Wetland Park, is to diversify the range of tourism attraction. As you know that Hong Kong is a shopping center, right? People come here, they don't imagine we have ecotourism attraction, right? So we want to diversify the tourist attraction when they come to Hong Kong. So we built the Wetland Park. And we try to diverse visitor experience on natural heritage and wildlife. And we foster public awareness, knowledge, and understanding of inherited value of wetland. And also it's to marshal public support and action for wetland conservation. So these are some of the objective and the reason that why we built the Hong Kong Wetland Park. And Hong Kong Wetland Park has a 60 hectares, okay, of ecological mitigation area, okay. So near Maipo, if you know that very famous WWF site that very well famous called Maipo, and Wetland Park is near the area. Okay, it is what we call a Millennium Capital Project to promote ecotourism under the Hong Kong Country Parks law. So from this diagram, you can see the master plan for this Hong Kong Wetland Park. And you can see we have the different stream walk, and we have a discovery center, we have a broad walk, and these are the freshwater marsh, and that is wetland. It's a mangrove area here. You can see from the map, the area, okay? And you can see from the top and how Hong Kong Wetland Park look like. This is the main door when you enter. I always present this picture when I talk about Hong Kong Wetland Park. No other world wetland park like Hong Kong Wetland Park that we built into, you know, a city area. Okay, if you can see all the high rise here. The ecotourism in Hong Kong, what we label or what we call it, is an urban ecotourism, what we have. It's a ecotourism within an urban area, okay? Now, so if you still remember the factor, I mentioned this mindful factor. The first factor to help tourists to be very mindful is that we need a good physical orientation. The Hong Kong Wetland Park is a good example to show that we have very good, clear direction signs for visitors. Good signage is important for the people to find their way, right? If people cannot find their way, they will provide a negative experience. Good orientation system provide support for communication. So you can see these are the kids, they look like this maze, right? And you see how good, give you very good feeling about the setting, right? And then you can see all these different direction signs, very clear, and all these things. So different signage and good setting to build up good feeling for people before they enter, okay? Next factor called variety and change, right? And in the presentation in Wetland Park, right, that display full of variety. Variety in terms of what we call color, size, display, and format, how they present it, okay? So they can, sorry? So they can provide a better memory for visitors, okay? And then they provide not static. They provide movie, different display, right? And then they provide different walk, guided walk. They have workshop, right? And to the educating the tourists and the visitor. And they provide experiential learning experience to keep the visitor memorable. You can see the different presentation. Now this is a cartoon character that very popular in Hong Kong called Mak Dao. Okay, so it's a local character that it says this character come to wetland. All right. So later I explain this that this is as an interpretation skill that they use local character to connect to the visitors, that they have a more connecting to the visitor. And here another example of using colorful different size of display in the park. Here is an example of this called guided walk. Okay, there are different guided walk. You can book it in advance, and different time schedule you can join guided walk. Here, in example, they have different workshop for the tourists to join and participate. And this is a workshop that called Wetland Animal Baggage Workshop. All right, then they could a visitor and the kid, they can help them to do their own baggage. All right. The next factor is called multi-sensory media and interactive exhibits, right? So again, Wetland Park is doing very good in their setting. They provide multi-sensory media, interactive exhibits to provide variety, create more interest for participation opportunity for the visitors. For example, they have touchscreen computer with different games and language, and they have different area called inspiration area. You push the button and they have different sound animal. They have a wetland TV to give visitor different experience. And you can see all these touchscreen computer and games with different language. And this is the area what we call inspiration area. You press button and you can hear different sound from different animal. So it's very multi-sensory kind of exhibit and interaction with the tourists. So this is a computer storytelling thing, and tells you a day of mud scraper, and you push the button and tell you the story in a cartoon, right? And here is the TV mudland broadcasting, all right? Another factor what we call to keep tourists mindful is a tourist control. What do we mean by this? Is that you give freedom for the visitor to do more participation. You can choose it, all right? Not everything is a compulsory structure, but they have their free will to choose their activity to join it, all right? And depends on their interest to do it. That is important. So we provide different telescope, binoculars for people to enjoy. So you can see they can use different way to look at the wetland, all right? So we provide varieties for them, all right? Another factor called, these are the three factors in the model earlier I mentioned, called connection to visitor, interactive or use of question to help the interpretation. These are the three very important communication elements, right? Like storytelling, right? And like making metaphor use from our after-day life, and also ask question, also give the visitor to touch, smell, and taste things. These are all important elements to keep our visitor mindful. And here you can see the example that when I visit there, they give me to see this seeds that floating in water. Let me touch it, smell it, let me experience it, okay? And then they also, in the guided walk, right? They have a small group guided walk with 15 participants each time. And they sometimes we use volunteer to help out. Besides there's a guide, we have a volunteer to help out as well. And the tour guide, they will bring different book material to help their explanation and guiding. And after the whole guided walk, we will provide them evaluation and feedback questionnaire with a small souvenir to as an incentive to help them to provide us the feedback. Now, so you can see this tour guide, and these are the things that bring out to help them to do the explanation. This is the tour guide, and this is a volunteer to help out the group, right? Now, I want to show you a video, short video, and to show how this tour guide to do the interpretation. He's speaking in Chinese, but I try to explain to you later, right? See, Masaru, if you cannot see it, let me know, okay?
Yeah, I'm afraid that the audio may not come out. Let's see.
係啦，而家冇花啊，但係我哋有幅圖嘅俾大家睇啊，呢度有，係啦，養花有咩用咧？我飲過啦。
Can you hear me, Masaru? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear it, yes.
Okay, I just show you this video. This video is about the tour guide trying to explain to the visitor that he asked, "What have you seen the flower from this tree? What kind of tree?" And the guy earlier showing a dry flower to show the tourists that this is the flower that we use to make our herbal tea. We drink. Very popular Chinese to drink herbal tea. I show you the video and I explain again.
嗱，水花其實咧係我哋五花茶用咗一花，同埋亦都係24味其中一味，係用嚟清熱感冒。即係可以藥用嘅，要用嘅嚇，要用嘅係啦。嗱呢啲就呢啲花嚟嘅，係啦，呢個水花嚟，見到都唔知。係啦，所以行過大家話俾大家聽啦。就係五花茶或者係嗰啲24味其中一味啦嚇。唔好問我24味有幾多有啲乜嘢入邊。
Right. Sarah, can you watch that video? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Fine.
So as I explained that this tour guide, he tried to explain and connect to the tourists, saying that this tree is very, the flower from this tree is very useful because the flower can make herbal tea. There is a type of herbal tea. If you know the Chinese, they love to drink herbal tea, especially in southern China, right? We have a type of herbal tea called a 5-flower herbal tea. And that flower is one of the material that we can drink. So I think he's using some local analogy that the tourists are familiar to explain the value of the tree in the park, and it's a very good connection to show to the tourists. So this is the questionnaire, evaluation questionnaire that show to the tourists and give them incentive after they fill this. I think the whole process of the guided tour is very good. That's why I think it's very popular. Now, I just show you this visitor result after their first year of opening, and that's just a few months. They already have 600,000 visitors for the first year, open only like half year. So it's a very popular park when it begin, right? And then if you see that. There are survey. This survey result I got it from the wetland park manager, right? So, which area do you find most interesting? They find the walk very interesting. All right. I myself find it very interesting as well. And every year when I teach a subject called visitor management, I ask my students to go there and experience and provide me the feedback how it go. And most of them they say, well, the guiding are very good and help them to have a good memory, good experience, make them very interesting. Right, just to confirm the result. Right, I asked my student and myself, and you can see another survey from the result is saying that do you find you know more about wetland? 85% say yes, they know more. So I think again they have a very good mindful experience making use what I call this mindful factors. The 7 factor I mentioned earlier in the model, all right? And so there's another question, how long have you stayed in the wetland park? 2 to 4 hours, 58% of them, they're saying that. And then would you like to come again to visit it? Well, 86% they say they would like to come again. So I just showing you some of the results saying that this park is doing very good, and I think if you've never been to Hong Kong and never been to this park, I think I would recommend you to come to visit this park, right? And just now I used this called Mindful and Mindlessness model, right? If you still remember my early model, this diagram, I like to go back to this diagram. So these are the mindful, mindfulness, and these are the factor, these are the outcome, all right? I'm trying to give you, just now we finished applying to the wetland, right? I want to show you that actually this model can apply to a different setting as well, different ecotourism setting, right? And I don't know whether Albert is here today, right? I take an example from Malaysia, right? Actually, there are some other research using called mindful and mindlessness model to study in the Malaysian National Park, and how that model can promote interpretation in the heritage site in Malaysia. And I read from the article that they even find some new factor to add to this model called situational factor. And this situational factor is that they create a right atmosphere for visitors. As what we say, like the physical environment. All right, and we can, as a tour guide, as an eco-tour, I think we need to point out the setting and the environment that in the setting, and we help them to remember the setting and give a good word of mouth for them. Okay. And next setting I would like to draw is that we can apply this to another setting in a cultural encounter. So there's another example that this model been applied in tour guide things, tour guide for cultural tour for American people to go to Africa. So from the researcher, they said interpretation is a journey where we learn not only about tourists and about how they feel and react to new environment, but also our role as tour guides in stimulating mindfulness and mindedness. So the role of tour guide in interpretation, we have the job to help visitor to remember better, okay? And besides, this research saying that tourist characteristics are also important. We have to understand the tourist motivation. Like last time, this Tuesday, our Japanese board member, Kato, okay, he's talked about the hierarchy of need model to understand better the motivation of tourists. Expectation, and we have to know more about the period experience of our tourists in order to influence their mindful or mindfulness. Okay, for example, in her experience, saying that if they can improve the tourist experience, perhaps they can use ask the tourists to do some traditional cooking of the local cooking to help people have a better memory, to get them to have a better active participation, so they remember what they experience in this Lesotho area as a cultural experience for them. All right, cooking. So it's interesting that last week I read from a board member messenger. They discussing about the COVID-19 thing. Our group board member talking about in future, agro-tourism will be popular from Mohit, and then with some other member, Johnny say yes, and saying that Cambodia will do more farm tourism, and then city, our board member told Taiwan a lot of this farm tourism. Actually, this mindful and mindless model can apply to farm tourism. It has been studied a lot for this and farm tourism. Many years ago, when I teaching my student, and I have my student to write undergraduate dissertation, and I asked her to use mindful and mindfulness model to study farm tourism, and she find this model very useful. And if you can use more multimedia, sensory, high level participation, and use of question and making more choice for the tourists will help them to think, to remember more. So this is what I say, mindful and mindfulness model can be useful in farm tourism as well, right? So they talk about cooking in the farm, use the local material, help people to touch, taste, smell, and even cooking to provide a good memory. I don't know whether our Taiwan, last 2 years ago, we have our visit to Taiwan. I don't know whether you guys in Masaru remember that this coffee making experience, Masaru? You there?
Of course, we remember.
Yeah, so this helping us to do the coffee making, the whole experience so good, remember? And that is what we call mindful. That's like mindful. So as a conclusion, I would say the mindful mindedness model is a useful tool in different settings to enhance visitor experience and satisfaction. And I just now use a wetland park as a demonstration for these factors and apply to other settings. And of course, this model can improve more and study more in more research. And I hope that throughout this lecture, that people can learn more when they do our interpretation, and we can use this mindful and mindfulness model to do better eco tour guide training. And that is my conclusion. So here are the reference, okay? And I actually written an article in published in Chinese in China. And I have an English version of this paper. If you need, send it to me. And also I will put this PowerPoint in our archive, okay? And Masaru will put it out, and you register, and you can get a copy of the PDF file, my file. Before I finish, okay, I like to, Masaru, you see this?
Oh my goodness.
That is your challenge called, what we call this challenge? Challenge accepted. I didn't put my picture in the Facebook. Now I take the challenge this time.
Wow.
That's me. That's my PhD graduation photo. So I take myself. I hope I create a good mindful learning experience to you, and at least you remember me with these two pictures. Thank you for your support for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, so much. Yeah, very good. Still stay there.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to get some questions from the floor. You can either unmute yourself and start talking with your brief identification, or you can also raise your hand on the next to the chat button where I can see you, so I can unmute you. But either way would work. And I have a few questions on the group chat also. So anyone like to try? Any questions?
Great. No question?
Let's do a question. Well, there's a question from, let's just read from the group chat from Viven, I think. What do you think of measuring results of interpretation program in more specific than just knowing more?
Sorry, could you repeat? Why I cannot see the question in the...
Yeah, it's in the group chat, but it's saying that, how do you measure result of like effectiveness of interpretation program than just knowing more?
Well, we have to do survey, to ask to interview the tourists, of course, okay, in order to test it to know whether they know more. Okay, yeah, you have to do survey to ask the tourists, right? That's why I send my student to the wetland park and do some survey themselves, see whether they learn anything from the tour. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, because you're based in Hong Kong, it's the interpretation center and everything is more in the urban area,
Yeah.
where in other parts of Asia we have a much smaller scale of interpretive center and more in the natural area, which we also think is ecotourism. I think to my surprise is to have Hong Kong having ecotourism association. Is that right? I mean,
not really.
not
No.
association, but you're practicing ecotourism in Hong Kong alone. It's a surprise to me. Was.
Yeah.
And I have a question from Roberto saying, which among the interpretation tools or factors do you find more effective to achieve mindfulness?
Connection to the tourist. Right. You have to connect, and you have to know your customer before you can help them to learn. As I say, a kid and old people, you might use different language to talk to them, even explaining the same thing. You see what I mean? So you have to know your customer, know your audience, then you can connect to them, their background. Yes, thank you, Roberto.
We still got some time. If you have questions from Flora, anyone else?
Yeah. Yes.
Speak quiet today.
I can see someone they raised her hand just now.
Alan?
Hello.
Masaru?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Maybe the lady.
Speak?
Yeah, okay.
My name is Big. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. It's bring me to a very new concept and a very nice place that I never been to. And my question is, who manage Hong Kong wetland, like government, the government or some NGO or some private business, and what is the financial result of the mindfulness model that you apply that they apply to Hong Kong wetland? So yeah, you show the result that the number of visitors increase and they will come back again. But how about the financial results so far? I mean,
Yeah.
you understand what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your question. Where are you from?
I'm from Vietnam, but I'm a PhD student in Japan.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Oh, you're so close to us.
First of all, this is a government-funded project. It's run by the government. I love to know their financial status, but they don't give it to me.
Yes.
I asked them now. The statistic visitor survey is the old one. Actually, I have a new visitor survey, but I written in another article. Okay. And it's difficult to get this statistic. I have one latest one about 3 years ago. If you like, I can show you another article I written that there's some more new survey, but they are doing good. Visitation, very good. Now we get more tourists from China now. Okay. Like other theme park, we get many tourists from China.
Thank you very much. I'm interested in this financial thing because if the wetland is how to say, partly self-support, so in that case, the financial thing is very important, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I tell you one example lately now what happened in Hong Kong. We have a park called Ocean Park. Ocean Park in Hong Kong. It is a half-half. Initially, it's supported by the government and supported from donation. And they want to make it a self-financed place, but not success.
Oh,
Very poor result now. And we're talking about. So if we using it 100% for education, difficult to make a profit, right? Yeah, it's different from mass tourism, just giving people entertainment. But we're talking about as an educational center, very difficult to make a profit.
Yeah.
That's my rule.
Yeah, because I do ecotourism research in Vietnam, in some national park in Vietnam, and you know, in Vietnam the government can't support too much money for the national park to build up such a nice facility like in Hong Kong, like to be mindfulness like that. Maybe we need much money, so they.
There are many other ways to do it. The many other way besides the
money.
Okay. Okay. You can send email and we can talk more. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much in advance.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you. And Roberto, did you want the question? Go ahead.
Yeah. Alan.
Yeah.
With this current COVID pandemic, more destinations are requiring visitors to wear face masks.
Yeah.
Do you think this will cause some challenge in interpretation?
Well, of course. I think there's when we talk about whether wearing masks or not, we have some cultural difference, right? We learned that in the West, they don't very much wear a mask, but in Asian context, especially in Hong Kong, like us here, everybody acquire self-awareness to wear a mask. But with the mask, you sometimes cannot talk too clearly, and but it must. You have to wear a mask. We have no choice. And very close, this social distance, right?
That's right.
And actually, we close. Most of the attractions are closed right now. They close. How about in your country, Roberto? You from where? I forgot.
No, Philippines.
Roberto. Yeah. So is it closed? Most of your attraction?
Yeah. Of course. I'm just thinking of the mask would be a sort of a barrier between your audience and your interpreter or the guide, for example.
Yeah. That would be, I guess, right? So it may take at least half a year. Then we finish this COVID-19 and we back to the normal, and we have, because when you say interpreter, it's a lot of facial expression as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Facial expression.
Yeah, right.
What do you say? You have a very nice smile, you know? That welcoming, people will think that you have a nice smile and very, you're having your passion, a lot of facial expression that you can connect to the visitors and the tourists. So it will affect your interpretation for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm reading one from Flora, which says, can you give some examples on how do you design the tour for children using the concept of mindfulness?
Again, you have to surprise them, you know, and tell them good story that they don't understand or they never experience it. Make a contrast for them, you know, for the kids. And you have to learn the kids' language sometimes, okay? And you have to know the word. If you know, use some cartoon character to communicate with them. Like I say in Wetland Park, we say there's called Mak Dao. Mak Dao is a cartoon character in Hong Kong. The kids love it. They know that maybe at our time, I don't know, the latest kid, what kind of cartoon character they know. And then you try to put them into their shoes, then they have a better understanding. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Alan. I think for time-wise, we have to close soon. But can you give me? Can you stop your screen share so I can share my screen for the rest of the people? Can you do that on your computer?
Sorry, I cannot hear what you say.
Oh, stop sharing your screen so I can gain my.
Oh, okay. Back. Stop sharing my screen. Okay, I going. Yeah. Okay. How to do it? Stop sharing my screen.
I can do that. I can do it myself. All right.
Okay. Is it all right now?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I just got my screen back to my computer.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Alan, for your time. And I see about 70% of people who have already been on this session. But for some people who are new to our session, just like to remind you that our next session is going to be on the 21st. So it's another 6 days apart. Although at the same time in Bangkok, 4 p.m. Bangkok, and spoken by the Malika, who is a Singapore-based board member. She's in Gaia Discovery Media, and she'll be talking about how to use storytelling to connect with customers. So whomever interested in working with the social media, she's a writer and she's a go-getter for ecotourism. So it must be interesting for you to get some insights from her. And for today's session and past sessions, we have had about 7 of them all together. If you have not signed in, you can go to our AEN site and sign up with the web member site, which you need to enter your name and email address. That will allow you to, for example, go to e-learning archive, where I can post Alan's video maybe tomorrow. You can also watch the past video sessions. It's all here. And if you want Alan's file, which I can also put in this file, it's all free. We also have ecotourism declarations and others for you to learn. So all these things, you can be more active signing up, and you can also send messages to other people who are members within this site. So all these people who are here actually already have signed up for. So there are some benefits that you can get for free, especially if you're studying ecotourism or want to share your paper as a part of academian activity. So that's pretty much wrap up from me as a moderator for this session. Alan, did you want to say something at the end?
Oh, just say thank you for your support, okay. Everyone. Keep in touch. I'll post the PDF file to you later, Masaru.
Yeah,
okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much again for everybody. Good afternoon and evening. See you again on 6-day time. All right.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.